Okay. So the first thing I wanted to mention is that I've released the Kubernetes project, and you guys should see it in your account. Um, so once you have gone through all your other projects, then you can work on it. So if you haven't completed some of the earlier projects, you should complete, like uh, hosting the static website, hosting the dynamic website, the Docker project. Don't start the Kubernetes project, because in order to understand Kubernetes and get the most out of that project, first you have to complete the lower level projects to get the understanding of how to create different things in AWS before you attempt to take the Kubernetes project. Even as a base, you need to understand the Docker project before you attempt the Kubernetes project, because in the Kubernetes project, you are pretty much going to be doing the same thing you did in the Docker project with building your Docker image and pushing it to ECR. And you also need to understand how to build your VPC, create your security groups, set up your route tables and everything. So it is better to just go through the projects in the order that I've listed them. Then when you have completed the other project, you understand them, you can attempt the Kubernetes project. But I've listed them in the order you should complete them. So that one is there. The Kubernetes project is there. You can take it when you are ready. Other than that, I don't have any other updates for today. So I'm going to review the tickets on the Jira boards for those that have completed their assignment here. So I'll review that today. If I need to provide any feedback, I'll provide a feedback to you. And just looking at the screenshots, it looks like everything is done correctly. So if there isn't anything you need to do on it, I'm just going to mark it as done and move it into the done column. Um, yes, so other than that, there's no other updates I have for today. But I do want us to continue working on the DevOps exercise we were working on last week. And I would probably dedicate the next like 45 minutes to that. Then I then once we are done with that, then we can use the rest of the time to help um, anyone that needs help troubleshooting. Before we start, does anyone have any question? Okay, so let me open my Visual Studio Code. Okay. All right, so this is the exercise we were working on last week. That was based on this instructions here on what we need to do. And moved, we already went through these instructions and um, created this list of tasks that we need to complete, right? We did the first task last week, which is to convert our code into Terraform module and create a new stack in a different region. So we did that. So today, let's work on the auto scaling group. And next week, we'll work on task 3. Um, so according to the instructions here, currently our infrastructure has one EC2 instance that the the Terraform code creates. They said that over the weekend, the EC2 instance went down, and they want you to create a solution that allows them to be able to spin up their EC2 instances on the fly. So that way, if one goes down, another one comes up. So to create that solution for them, we said that we will use EC2 instance. We will use auto scaling group to launch our EC2 instance. So all we have to do is update. Well, all we have to do is update our module and add the code for the auto scaling group in it. So last week we already created the module. So we just need to. Last week we already created the modules folder. So we just need to create another module for the auto scaling group, and we will now update our application in London and Virginia to use that auto scaling group module. So to start, remember to create the module, you can right click on your modules folder and select new folder. First, we will create the folder for our auto scaling group module. So here I'm going to name it ASG for auto scaling group. Then once you create the folder, we are going to create two files in that folder. The first one is going to be our main.tf file. Once you create your main.tf file, the next one we will create is the variables.tf. So I'm going to right click here again, and I'm going to select new file, and I'm going to name the file variables.tf. So once we've created both files, the next thing we will do is in the main.tf file, we will start creating the auto scaling group resource. The first thing we have to create is, normally I prefer to create a VPC module. No, normally I prefer to create an a security group module, because right now our security group is in the EC2 instance, which it is fine there. So if you know the application is going to be consistent, you can leave your security group in the EC2. But on our project, we usually just create the security group module separately. But for this example, we will leave it in the EC2. So we need to do the same thing for our auto scaling group. First, we need to create our security group. So I'm just going to copy the security group resource from the EC2 module, and I'm going to use it in my auto scaling group module. So that's the first thing we have to do.
That's a quick question, please.
Yes, sir.
Do you have to create a module for, can we create a module for everything? Like,
Yes, sir. Yeah, you can.
okay.
So to make it easy, right? If you are going with just doing everything at once and being and just being straightforward, because they really didn't tell you that you have to create the EC2 VPC, right? They just told you to create the resources, right? And you are free to create it however you want. You can put all the resources in one TF file, and that will be your module, and you can call that module. So in your project, you will just specify whatever your variables are. So yes, you can do that. But I think it will be much better, and it will show your understanding of how to create modules if you separated your modules based on the resources. But yes, to your point, you can add all the resources in one file and use that file as your module.
Sorry for the question. Another question.
No, you're fine.
Is there any difference between resources and service in AWS?
No, the resource here,
Yeah.
when we refer to resource, that is the service in AWS. right? So when we say resource here, right, that is Terraform. That is how Terraform that is what Terraform calls it. But in AWS, it is called service. So which is when we select any of this, or if we type it here and look for it. So it's the same thing.
So if, let's say in an interview now, I can either say resources or service.
Yes. It depends on what you are speaking on. So if you, I mean, it doesn't matter really. So whatever you want to call it, but if you are referring to your Terraform code, it is better to just say resources, right? But if you are referring to something in AWS, it is better to say service. So that way it is clear on what you are talking about. But it really doesn't matter really, but the more you work with it, I'm used to calling, when I'm creating something here, I just call it the resource. But yeah, you can call it anything you want. You can either call it resource or service. It is interchangeable. Like someone, if you told me that, I would understand. But just to be clear, you can just say refer to your Terraform code as the resource. And if you are describing something in the AWS console, just call it a service.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay. So we have created the security group here. The next thing we need to create is a launch template. You guys remember that anytime we are creating an auto-scaling group, the first thing we need is a launch template. And you guys can see that in the console here when you go to EC2. And on the EC2 dashboard, we have the launch template here. Because if you go to auto-scaling groups here and select auto-scaling groups and click create auto-scaling group, you can enter the name here. The first thing, the next thing it is going to ask you to select is the launch template. So if you have a launch template, you can select it. Launch template is pretty much what the auto-scaling group will use to create your EC2 instance. And a launch template contains the configurations and configuration or settings that you want your EC2 to have. You guys know when you launch your EC2 instance, you select things like the AMI for the EC2 instance, if you are using a key pair, the key pair for the EC2 instance, the security group for the EC2 instance, the instance type for the EC2 instance. So auto-scaling group does not know what the configuration of your EC2 instance should be. So the launch template you attach to it is how you tell it, when you spin up the EC2 instance over the weekend, these are the settings I want you to pick for the EC2 instance. So that is one of the reasons why we need a launch template. So to create a launch template, you guys remember anytime you are writing a Terraform code from scratch, right? So all you have to do is just type something as descriptive as what you are trying to write. So here in the console, here in Google, I'm going to look for Terraform AWS launch template. And I'm going to press enter. One of the things I really like about the Terraform documentation is that anytime you search for anything, even as descriptive, if you have Terraform in it, it always brings up the result is always the first result in your search is always what you are looking for. So here you can see it, AWS_launch template. I'm going to select it. And here we have the example usage of the launch template. So I'm just going to scroll down. Well, yes, this has only one example. We don't need to specify all the things they have listed here in the launch template, but we will just copy this code and use it as our base then we'll just remove whatever we don't need in it. So I'm going to copy it, and in my code, I'm going to paste it here. Then once I've pasted, right off the bat, I'm going to just remove everything, all the arguments for now. Then we can add it because it's a lot. I'm just going to remove everything. I'll leave the VPC ID, but I'll remove everything under the VPC ID. This will also help you understand how to pick your own arguments. So if you don't understand what argument you need, a practice that I use is I go into the EC2 console and select launch template here and click create launch template. Then I'm going to look at the launch template here. Whatever settings they have here, right? Whatever settings I am entering here, that is exactly what I would try to look for to add to my Terraform code. So here, I'm just going to pretend as if I'm going to create a launch template. You can see the first setting is the launch template name. So,
Hello, Access.
yes, sir.
I think you have encroached into the security group resource you copied earlier. You've taken out some of the arguments.
Let me see. Oh, yes, I did. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I don't know why. Yeah, I scrolled up too fast. Maybe I should start from up here. Okay, yeah, that's true. Let me start from here. Name. Okay, I'm going to. Okay, yeah. Thank you. So when you see the settings in the launch template and the first setting is name, all you have to do is find the equivalent of this in Terraform. In Terraform, in AWS, these are called like settings, right? The settings you pick for the service you are creating. In Terraform, they are called arguments. So once you find the documentation of the resource you are trying to create, every resource will have its own specific argument. So all you have to do is, you don't even have to scroll down. You see here, they already have the arguments reference. Click on it, and it will bring you to the bottom of that documentation where they have the argument section. So here, you just have to look through it. One thing I'll mention is the arguments are in alphabetical order. So if in the management console, this is called name, I'm just going to start by looking for something that is called name in the argument. Sometimes the argument will be the same exact name. Sometimes it will be something very close, but you'll be able to tell that, okay, this is what I'm looking for. And if you can't tell by looking at the name, in cases that the name may be different, you just read the description of what that argument is doing. So here, I'm just going to scroll down. It is in alphabetical order. So I'm going to go to N. So you can see N here, the name of the launch template. This is what I want. So that is how you get your first argument name. And this is what we have here in the code name. So for the name, I'm just going to give it a name. I'm just going to call it launch template. Okay. Then another thing we can do is for the reference name. Remember when you are creating a resource, this is a resource, right? You can give the resource a name within your Terraform code. So I don't usually like using the name that comes from the Terraform documentation. And one practice that I use is I'm just going to copy the launch template from here. Don't copy the AWS because the AWS is how Terraform knows that that is the resource you are trying to create. So you can't use the same name for your reference name. But what you can do is copy the description in that resource type and just use it as your reference name. So that way, when you are looking at it, you understand. But let's say it is specific to something, Then you can type the name, maybe let's say dev, you can say dev launch template or something like that. But to start, I just like using the whatever the resource name is after the AWS. So that is the first argument name. Then if you don't know the next argument you need to pick, go into your launch template, right? The next one is description. So you go to the Terraform code, Terraform documentation, look for an argument that starts with description. So let's look here. It should be under D. You can see description here. So you copy it from here, go to your Terraform code, paste it here. I need to change my spacing. So I'm going to paste the description here. And I'm going to enter equal sign and type the description. So for the description, I'm just going to type launch template for auto scaling group. All right. So next time, the next thing you go to the EC2 console, right? And here you just scroll down. The next thing you need to specify, some of these are optional, so we won't worry about them. And the next one is the AMI. So this is where you select your AMI, and the next one after that is instance type, and the next one after that is key pair. So we are going to go into our Terraform documentation. The first one is AMI. So we can look for AMI here. If you can find, you can see A is here, but you don't see anything AMI. So this is what I meant by sometimes the certain name in the console and the argument in Terraform will be the same name, and sometimes it will be different. So if you are not sure what it is called in the argument, I can just do like a Control F here, and I'm going to search for AMI. And you can see here, AMI popped up here. It says the AMI from which to launch the EC2 instance. So I know this is what I'm looking for. And in Terraform, it is called image ID. So I'm just going to copy this. And I'm going to paste it here. Then I'm going to enter an equal sign. And for this image ID, let's create a variable for it. Because remember that when we call the module, based on the region we are launching our resource, the AMI will be different. So here, I'm going to make it a variable. So I'm just going to create variable. Now, I'm just going to type var dot, I'll call it AMI ID. Remember now we have two variables in our resource. What you can do is you can continue to create your resource, and when you are done, just create your variable. That is why it is giving us the error now, because the variables we have specified here, we have not yet created them in the variables.tfl. So the next argument is the instance type. So here we are going to enter instance type. So first, if you don't know, in the Terraform documentation, it is, instance type. So I have a Terraform extension that for whatever resource type you are creating, it knows all the arguments that comes with that resource. And if you start to type the description of it, it will pop up here. You can see when I start to type anything IN, it is showing me all the arguments that comes with this resource type that has IN in it. And I can see the instance type here. I'll just select it. So that's one of the fast way you can add your arguments. Then for the instance type, we will use T2 micro. And the next argument we will pick is, if we scroll down here, we don't need to pick our VPC. We don't need to pick the VPC settings because we can do that on the auto-scaling group itself. So here, we'll just omit this setting. We won't pick the security. No, yes, we will pick the security group. So here, we can, in the VPC settings, we can add a security group. So in the Terraform documentation, we just need to look for security group. So you can try to find it here. Type security. So it's showing me 13 results. Sometimes it shows you stuff here. I'm just going to keep pressing down. And you can see they are using it in the example they gave us, which it is called VPC security group ID. So I'm just going to copy this. And in my Terraform code, if I keep pressing down, just to explain, you'll also see the argument here. So it is here. A list of security groups names to associate with. So if I go back to my code, I'm just going to paste that here. Then I need to modify my security group. Remember, I created my security group up here. So I'm just going to copy the resource type and the reference name of my security group. And I'm going to paste it here. And I'm going to remove this, add a period, and at the end, I'm going to add the attributes that I want to reference, which is the ID of the security group. So that is that argument, security group. These are the only critical settings we need to pick. So here you can see that when we are creating our launch template, these are the things we usually pick. We don't really pick anything on the other ones. So the same thing applies to Terraform. Anything that you wouldn't pick here, even though you see it, you don't have to add it to your Terraform code. So that's everything here. And if we select advanced details, remember that how we are installing the Nginx server on the EC2 instance in the sample code they gave us is using the user data. So that lets us know we need the user data. So if you scroll down under this advanced, this is where they have the user data in the launch template. So we need to add a user data argument in our Terraform. So here I'm going to scroll down. You can see they have a user data argument. So I'm going to copy it. And in my Terraform code, I'm going to paste it here. For our user data, right? Remember in their code, let me show you. Remember in their code, they used this. They just add their script in the user data. But what you guys will see the most at work is in the user data section. If they are using it, they typically create their script in a file and use that file to run their user data. So they are not going to hard code their script into the Terraform code. They will just reference it from a file. So let's do the same thing. So for now, I'm just going to create a file somewhere here. I'm just going to create a file somewhere here. I'm going to right click anywhere in this space, new file, and I'll call the file. The script is creating Nginx, so I'm just going to call the file install nginx.sh. Don't forget to add the sh. That means the shell script. Then once we've entered the name, right? Let's copy the script, which is, it starts from this bin bash. let's copy this script here. Once you copy it, I'm going to close this. And in my script file I just created, I'm just going to paste it there. Then, once we paste it, let's save the file. Then in my main.tf file, I'm going to reference that file And the way you can reference it is, let me see if they have the example here. It is something I had to look up myself because sometimes I don't always understand how to reference it. So you can see here how they have to reference a file, right? This is using the path, meaning that it is checking in the module and it is looking for the file. But this is a simple reference that we are doing, so we can enter it like this. And I had to look up this part on Google when I was doing it. So it was going to be base. Once you type it, you can see here, base 64 encoded, right? In the parentheses, we'll type file. Then once you type file, you can also see it here, select it. Then in the parentheses, that is where you specify the name of the file. So the name of the script is install nginx.sh. We can type it in here, but instead of doing that, let's create it as a variable. So that way we can dynamically pass any name in there. So here, I'm just going to create a variable. I'm start with the quote, then I'm going to add a $sign. Then let me even see if I can type it like this. Maybe I don't need to interpolate it. I'm just going to type var dot. Yes, I think I can enter it like this. Var dot, and I'll create a variable for it. I'll call it script name. Right. So I can do it like that. So I'll enter var dot script name. But one thing, let me check the documentation. One thing I noticed that in the script, there's always like a quote. So let me just do it that way. So I'm going to put a quote around it. Yeah. But in order to make sure it is a variable, because right now it has turned it into a string. In order to make it a variable, that's why we interpolate it. So we interpolate it by adding a $sign. Then we will put a parenthesis, the curly bracket here and 1 at the end. And you guys can see that when I did that, the color changed back to this color. So that is all we need to do to create our launch template. These are all the settings we need. We don't need to add any other argument. Then once we have created the launch template, we would create the auto-scaling group resource. So here, I'm going to look for the documentation, which is in Google. I'm just going to type Terraform, AWS, auto-scaling group. And this is the documentation. I'm going to select it. And in here, I'm just going to copy. Let me look for one that has just a basic. So in this code here, they are showing you where they are creating their launch template, right? You can see that here. And here, they are creating the auto-scaling group. So I'm just going to copy this. I really don't need all the code. I just need the auto-scaling group code. So I'm going to copy this. And in my Terraform code, I'm going to paste it here. And in here, for the auto scaling group, I'm just going to remove these ones. I'm going to remove these ones for now. But I'll keep these ones because I know we need this one. So and I'm going to remove this one as well. So we can leave this one because this is how we specify our region. But another way we can also do it is we can just use an argument in the, so if we go to the argument reference right here and scroll down here, right here. So instead of specifying your availability zone, you can just specify your subnet ID. By specifying your subnet ID, it knows what availability zone that subnet is in. So it is saying here, it is optional, but you can add a list of subnet IDs to launch resource. So we will use this zone identifier instead of the availability zone. Because once you enter your availability zone, you can see here, it says it conflicts with availability zone. So you have to use one or the other. So I like using the zone identifier because once you specify your subnet ID, it knows what availability zone that subnet is in. So I'll remove this and paste my VPC zone identifier. Then here I'm going to enter an equal sign. And what, yes.
But what if you use availability zone? What difference does it make?
It is just going to, there's no difference. You can use it. You can use availability zone if you want. It will just put your resources. I think when you use availability zone, it's just going to randomly put your resource in a subnet in that availability zone. But what if you have multiple subnets in there and you want to specifically put your resource in the app subnet instead of the database subnet? So by using this, you can specify the subnet ID, the specific subnet ID you want to put it in.
Thank you.
Yeah. Because auto scaling group is smart enough to put your resource in any subnet. So the zone identifier just allows you to be at least pinpoint exactly where you want to put it. So up here, I'm going to enter the zone identifier and a bracket because it is a list. One thing I want you guys to also pay attention to is when you are reading the examples, right? If it says list of something, here, list of something, list of something. List means it is expecting it to have multiple entries. Like you can have a list of something, meaning that we have 3 subnets in our VPC, so we can add all the subnets. So that is one thing. That's what they mean by a list. And in your Terraform code, you must tell it that you are creating a list. So here in my Terraform code, I must tell it that I'm creating a list. I can't just start typing my subnet ID here without specifying it as a list. It is going to fail. So first, you have to tell Terraform it is a list. And how you tell Terraform is by entering the bracket. Then once you enter the bracket, in your bracket, you can type the list of things you want. Remember, we created our subnet in the VPC module, right here. And we export the ID in the output.tf. So we are just going to use the value of the output we export as the variable to specify our subnet ID. So here, I copied the output, right, from here, and I'm just going to paste it in here. But before I paste it, I'm just going to type var dot and paste the output that I copied. Then I'll enter comma. Then this is how I'm going to specify the next one. So the next one is subnet B ID. I'm going to copy. And here, I'm going to type var dot and paste it. The next one is subnet C ID. To copy it, and here I'm going to paste it by first I'm going to type var and paste subnet ID. Another thing I want you guys to understand is when you have a list of something, right? Sometimes your list can get long, right? Let's say I have a bunch of lists, right? And it's just getting long here, right? One thing you can do is, and you will see that at your company, is like you can press enter here, right? So after the bracket, you can press enter and press enter and press enter here. So this is how you will see them organize it. You'll see something like this. So if you see something like this when you are looking at someone else's code, it is still the same thing. It is the same thing as if you had it in one line. So in order to make the code readable, sometimes you'll see them organize it like this. So that's something I want you guys to understand. So I'm just going to remove this ones that I add here. The next thing we are going to enter is the desired capacity. You guys know, well, I can't create an auto-scaling group in the console until I create my launch template. But from when we create an auto-scaling group, you guys know one of the things we have to pick is the desired capacity. How many EC2 instance do we want to maintain at all costs? Like at all time, how many EC2 instance do we want to maintain? That is what the desired capacity is. So we'll leave that at 1. The maximum capacity, this is when the auto-scaling group is scaling up our servers one at a time. How many instances do we want it to scale up to before it stops? This one, we can just enter it at 2. Then for the minimum size, this is when our auto-scaling group is scaling down our EC2 instance. How many instances do we want it to scale down to and stop? For the min, we can leave it at 1. So that is what this means. The next argument we can add is name, the name for the auto-scaling group, because in the console, I'm just going to cancel here, go down here, auto-scaling group, create auto-scaling group, and here you enter the name and the launch template. So here we can enter the name. And for the name, I'm just going to call it ASG. Then the next argument is launch template. But sometimes for some arguments, right, they don't just type it by, it is just not one name like that. Sometimes it is another nested resource. Well, not resource, but it is another nested code. So, and I'll show you what I mean. So here, if we look for launch template, you can see launch template is here. Anytime you are reading the Terraform documentation, right, you can see here they have arguments, and typically for the argument, they will have the name here. So you can see launch template here. So it is telling you, you can see right here, it is saying like it is a nested argument, meaning that it is not an argument that you type launch template and you enter equals this. It means that there are additional configuration in that launch template that you must specify. So it is telling you that it is a nested argument. And typically, if you click it, it will bring you to that part of the Terraform documentation where it is showing you what you need to have in that nest argument. So what this looks like, or what this means is, in your code, right? You have to type launch, what was it, launch template. So once you type launch template here, you say it, select it. You can say one of the good reason to use that autocomplete is that with whatever it needs to be, it would automatically create that for you. So you can say it is a nested argument, meaning that it has this bracket and that bracket. And in it, I need to specify this argument. So really the one we would need is we can either use, you can say these two conflicts with each other. So you can use either or. You can either use ID or name. Then we'll specify the version. So for the version option, it has latest, default, and by default, it is on default. So here I'm going to use the ID. So in my code, I'm going to type ID here equals, and remember my launch template, I created it here. So I'm going to copy. I don't know why my mouse is not really selecting things today. I'm going to copy this, paste it here. Remove the quote, add a period, then come to the end, add another period and type ID. So that is how we reference our launch template. And the other one we said we need is version. So you can type version here. And the version is going to be latest. You can see in the documentation how they told you to enter it. It is $latest. So I'm going to copy this. This means I want to use whatever the latest version of my launch template is. So I'm going to copy this and use it here. First, I'm going to enter a double quote and paste it in there. And the next or the last one, we can enter not in here, but in our auto-scaling group. Come down here. The last one we can add is tags, because you guys know when we launch when we use auto-scaling group to launch the EC2 instance, we want the auto-scaling group to tag the EC2 instance, so that way we know. So here we can use tag, and you can see here they have the tag section, which is also another nested resource, another nested argument. So in it, we can have the key, value, and propagate at launch. We will use all this. Let me see if they have an example here where they are using it, and I can just copy it. I don't see it, so I'm just going to. I saw it there, but that one is a little bit, there's other stuff in it, so I'm just going to create my own. So remember, it is tags. Tag. Once you select it here, it has created the nest for us. The first thing we saw in it is the key. Remember, it is similar to when you are creating tags in AWS. The first thing is the key, and the key is name. We always enter name. If we are creating name, a name tag, then press enter. Then the next one we saw is the value you want to give this key name. So enter value. And for the value, that is the name you want to tag it. So we can call it ASG server. Then the last option we saw is propagate at launch. And the value is true. So what this means is when our auto-scaling group is creating the EC2 instance, we want it to tag the EC2 instance ASG server. So that's what this propagate at launch would do. So these are all the settings we need to create the auto-scaling group. And the only thing we have to do now is for all these variables that are showing red, we just need to create a variable for them in the variables.tfr. So first I'm going to close this. Then I'm going to open my variables.tfr. I can dock it here. Close this for now. The first one we need to enter is the VPC ID. So I'm just going to type variable. And the name is VPC ID. So copy the name here and paste it in here. And I'm going to remove this. So that's the first variable. We need 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 variables. So here, what I can do is I'm going to press Control C on this one. Once you press, my cursor is here, and I'm just pressing Control C to copy it. Once I copy, I'm just going to paste it 6 times by pressing Control V. Then I can just copy the name from here. The next one is script name. The next one is subnet. Copy this one. And copy this one. Yeah, so now you can see all our code is now, the errors went away once we created the variable. So I'm just going to save my file, save it here, and save this. Once I save it, that's really all we need to do to create the module. So we've created the module for the auto-scaling group. Now, let's just use it to launch the EC2 instance in the London region. So I'm going to, let me save all. So I'm going to open the main.tf for the London region, right? Remember last week in this resource, we created a module for the VPC and the EC2 instance. So for now, I'm just going to comment out this once for the EC2 instance because we are not using that EC2 instance anymore. And we'll just add a module for the auto-scaling group. We'll call it module ASG. Then remember in your module, the first thing you have to list is the source. So here we enter source, and the source is going to be similar to what this one says, is in the modules folder, and in the modules folder, we called it ASG. So we'll add the 2 dots to go back. Remember what the 2 dot means is we are in the London folder. We are in the London folder. It is going to come out of that London folder and go into the modules folder, and in the modules folder, it is going to find the ASG. That is what this 2 dot it means. So we are enter / and it is going to find the module. So here we would type module. Then we enter another / and we type the name of the folder in the module we want to find, which is ASG. So that is how we specify the source, and press enter here. Remember, for any module you are referencing, whatever variables are in that module, you have to list them here. So go to the ASG module you reference, go to the variables.tfr, select all the variables, copy it, and in your main.tfr, let's just paste it here for now. Then we are going to remove the variable because we don't need that part of it. The trick that I use is I'll select one of the variable and the quote, and I'll type Control F to find it. Then I'm going to press this drop down and I want to change it to nothing. So I want to remove it and replace it with nothing. I'll click replace all here. So that's going to remove that part. And I'll do the same thing here. Select the quote and the bracket and I'll press Control F. Then here, I want to replace it with space equal sign. Because remember, it is going to be the argument name space equal sign. And I'll replace all. And that'll give you that. And you can just now select all this and press the tab key. And it is going to move it under that. So once you've done that, the next thing you can do is enter the name of your modules, the values for these arguments. The first one we are going to enter is our VPC ID. Remember, our VPC module is here, and the ID will be created in this module. So that's why we type module.vpc, right? This VPC is the exact name of the module here, VPC. Then we add another dot, and what output in this VPC do we want to reference? So if you go in the VPC module, right, in the outputs.tf file, see the output here. What output in it do we want to reference? It is the VPC ID output. So copy it and paste it here. We also use the output as the variable name, so you could have used it here, but I'm showing you this way to show you exactly where this value comes from. So the next one is the AMI ID. For this one, we can just use the same AMI we used to launch our EC2 instance here. I'm going to copy this one and paste it here. The next one is the script name. So this is the script that we want to run in our user data. Remember the script, we created it here. So what I'm going to do is, let me minimize this so you can see what's going on. This is my London folder that has my project stuff here, right? So what I'm going to do is move my script into that folder, because when you are running it, your script needs to be in the same directory as your code. So I've moved my script in there, and the name of my script is install nginx.sh. So I can right click on it, click rename, and press Ctrl A to select everything and copy it. Once I select it, I'm going to press Ctrl C to copy, and I'll click out. And here, I'm just going to press bracket, enter my bracket, and my quotes, and paste it in there. The next one I'm going to enter is the subnet IDs. So here it is going to be module.vpc, because remember the subnets were created in the VPC module. Then we are going to add another period and specify the outputs in that VPC module we want to reference, which is subnet AID, subnet BID, and subnet CID. You can see the name. So in my main.tf file here, I just need to reference them here. So I'm going to type subnet A, subnet AID, and here is going to be module.vpc .subnet BID, and this one is going to be module.vpc .subnet CID. And this is all we need to do to create our auto-scaling group. I'm going to remove that EC2 module because we don't need it anymore. I'm going to save this file. And I'm going to run my code. So before I run it, one thing I noticed about auto-scaling group is that in our VPC module, in the main.tf file for our subnet here, in order for a public IPv4 address to be assigned to the EC2 instance that our auto-scaling group launched, we have to enable that setting in the subnet. Remember the settings where we enable the public IP on launch, the public IP on launch on the subnet. So we are going to add that argument here. I think it's called enable. And I have to look for it. It is called, I think it is called enable public IP on launch or something. So no, it is not enable. Let me look for it. So to find it, what I can do is I can go to the documentation. I just type Terraform. Type Terraform. AWS subnet. Select the documentation. And here, this is the documentation to create a subnet. But I'm going to look for it here. Yeah, it's this one. It is called map public IP on launch. So that's why sometimes I said that the argument name will be different. So you can see right now it is set to false, meaning that if you don't specify it in your code, it is not going to change that setting. So I want to use this. So I'm just going to paste it here and change it to true. The value is going to be true. Now do the same thing for all the subnets. And I'm going to save it. Then we are pretty much done here. I'm going to close this. And in my London region that I'm going to deploy the infrastructure, I'm going to right click here and select open in integrated terminal. Then I'm going to type Terraform init. Then once I type Terraform init, I'm going to type Terraform apply. Oh, okay. So I messed up here. It is saying that my script, so in my launch template module, right? I can see why I messed up. In my main.tf, right? It should be, well, let me see. That script name. So let me see. Okay, let me see. Fail to decode data. So it is. Yes, go ahead.
I think on the documentation, it says something like file 64, something like that, not the base 64 code. I think so. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I can use that, but I've also used this before and it worked. So I'm not sure why. It could be maybe let me.
Can you look at the shebang? bin/sh/nyu. Is that valid? Like, I don't know. I've not seen that before.
Oh yeah. Oh, you mean yeah, we used this last week and it worked in that script.
Cool.
So okay, let me try what you said. So I'm going to bin bash. Let me try that to bin bash. But then I'll also try the other option that you said. So I just probably use the base. Try that. Yeah, in it. And apply. Okay, that one failed. But I know I've used this before. Maybe it was on like a different version of Terraform. So let me read this. Fail to decode. So let's try the one from the documentation. So it is Terraform AWS.
I think the base 64 code will work without having putting the $sign.
Without the $sign?
Yes, it takes a string and not the the
Yeah,
type.
yeah, but this is a string. Where is it? This is a string. Because that's why I have the quotes there. So you said without the $sign. So remember, if I move this, let's try it this way. So it wants a string, right? What do I have in my value? Let me see what I have in my value here. In my main.tf. Oh, let me see. Think about this. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So let me go to your suggestion. You said this expects a string, right? So that's what I'm saying. I can enter the string here, right? The name of the script here. I know that will work, right? But I'm trying to reference the name, because what if you change the name? Let me try this. I'm going to go by your suggestion, right? I'm going to use the name. Yeah, just going to comment. I guess it doesn't, it won't allow you to comment the argument there. So you have to just remove it 100%. So I'm going to save all my files. And I'm going to init. And apply. Okay, so it is complaining about this. So it's not that you can't find my script, because you can see it has it in here, but it is complaining about this. So I'm going to just try the one that comes from the documentation. Must be because the documentation, the version has updated, and that one just doesn't work anymore. Because I know I've used it before. Where is it? Yeah. We can paste that here. And our script is install nginx. to save all. And I'm going to run it again. Okay. So what this is saying is, why is it saying no file found? Is it my file here? Or did I put it? Let me see. No file is here, so it's saying no file exists in module. Or does it want me to put it in the, so that's why, but I know I've used that other one before. 64. Try this again. In my well, and I'm going to just init again. And I'm going to run my Terraform apply. See, it worked that time. So I think the issue is, I think the issue is, you can see, let's review it, right? In my autoscaling group main.tf, I'm still using that base 64 encoded file, but I think what happened is when I was selecting it, right? I did, let me see. Just going to copy this and paste it down here, comment this out, and this one, going to remove it. And I think I was typing this, right? And I selected this one. Oh, you see what I think this was the mistake I made. You guys can see it, right? So that's one thing you have to be mindful of when you are using the auto suggest, right? So here I type base 64, there is decode, there is encode. I selected the decoded one. That was why it wasn't working. So it should be encoded, not decoded. So that was the issue with my first code when I ran it and it wasn't working. I know it works because I've done the research before. So I'm just going to comment this out. And here I'm going to run apply. Yeah, I've already run the apply. I'm just going to type Y for yes. And give it some time. Yes, it's creating the auto scaling group now. And okay, it is done. Yeah, it is done. So if I go in the management console, and I'm going to cancel here. And I'm in the EC2 service already. I'll select the EC2 dashboard and refresh here. I have one EC2 instance running, and it is still initializing. Remember, it will probably take some time to at least a minute or two to initialize, run the shell script before I can try to access my website. So I'll just give it some time to finish initializing. But in the meantime, do you guys have any question?
My question will be, realistically, how long do you think like it would have taken to complete this?
Mm, for me, I know it would take me time, right? It will probably take me. It depends on how fast you work. But
Yeah.
I mean, they said that it should take you about 3 hours, right? But then it depends on what is taking time is because I'm explaining everything from the documentation, but you already understand that. So I'll say it should take you just about the same amount of time, about 3 hours. And if it takes you longer, it is fine because it's the quality of work that matters. It doesn't really matter how long. I mean, you don't spend 20 hours on it, but if they say it should take you 3 hours and it takes you 4 to 6, that is fine. It just depends on the quality of work.
Okay.
Because when we are building the module, there's so many different routes we can go. You can decide to just say, you know what, they didn't say I should separate my resources. So I'm just going to move all my code in one module and call that module from there. And that would be much easier to set up. But you can explain during your interview that this is the route I went, but we could have also done it this way. So yeah, it just depends. And also here, I'm creating variables. You can hard code certain things, so you don't have to create variables. So yeah, it depends. It shouldn't take you more than that time, like 3 to 6 hours, I would say. But 6 hours is me really stretching it. But I think because you understand the basic structure of creating Terraform and all that stuff, it will take you less time. Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks.
Yeah, minus running into errors, from
Exactly.
along the way. Okay,
Yeah,
so
because I did attempt it, and I'll say it probably took me about 5 hours, but
Okay.
I made a mistake. I put the load balancer in the private subnet, and it took such a long time for me to realize that was why it wasn't working.
Oh, I see. Yeah, see, you even added the load. Well, that's on the tags 3. So yes. So like I said, if I took it to, it would take me about the same amount of time because, and I agree, one thing we don't factor is error. So I worked yesterday we were working on, I was working on something, and they said that during our stand-up, I already gave the presentation. I already told them that my code is done. I just need to run my pipeline real quick and test it. Then when I was running it, I ran into an error, which took me about 2 to 3 hours to troubleshoot. So, I mean, just like trying different things and seeing what works. So yes, sometimes the error, you would have your code organized, but the error might be what sets you back when you are troubleshooting different things. So, but a good thing about this assignment, which is one of the ones I like, is the ones they give you to take home to complete, then you come back and explain what you've done. So I usually like those ones. And when I did, there was a time where I had a test where I had to do right there on Zoom. I didn't complete the assignment because we only had 1 hour, I think.
Yeah.
They interviewed me for about 20 minutes, just asking just questions. Then the 40 minutes was meant to complete the assignment. That's the one I shared on YouTube where I was had to deploy a Jenkins server.
Yeah.
I didn't finish that assignment, and they still offered me the job, but because mainly they just, like I said, your main job as a cloud engineer is to solve problem. And when they are interviewing you, yes, they are testing you on your knowledge of Terraform. So if you say you know how to use Terraform, let's say you are coding this in front of them, they can see that, okay, he knows what he's doing. But mainly what I feel that this test is about is just seeing how you go about solving problem, because they've listed a bunch of problems. So whether it's a requirement, something they want to have, or an issue they are having, that is still a problem that they have that they are asking you to solve for them. So mainly, I think that is what they test you on, because when you go back to the interview, they will ask you questions. Why did you do it this way? Could you have done it this way? So I would say let's not focus too much on the coding part, but the exercise as a whole is testing your ability to solve problems and also testing your understanding of Terraform. So I think it is a lot. It has more to do with those things. So it's just not about the code part. Yeah, this is done. So I'm just going to test it now. I'll copy the public IPv4 address and paste it here. Press enter. And yeah, there you go. I can access my Nginx server. So it is working. The only other thing you probably need to test is, since the autoscaling group is launching this, we would terminate it and see if a new one comes back up. Because if everything is working as expected, the issue they said they were having is that on weekend, their EC2 instance would somehow would stop working, but they want the ability for a new one to spin back up. So we will test that problem by terminating this EC2 instance. So that EC2 instance has been terminated, and we should give it maybe like a minute or two, and we should see another EC2 instance come up. There you go. I don't even have to wait a minute or two. You can see almost instantly another EC2 instance has been launched by the autoscaling group. It says pending. So if I refresh here, it's still pending. So now it is running, but obviously it has to finish initializing and running our script. But the autoscaling group has launched another EC2 instance. So we have solved that problem, and that task is completed. That's pretty much as far as I'll go today. So maybe next week we'll work on task 3. Do you guys have any questions?
I have a question.
Sir, go ahead.
The interview of the test, if it is not take home and you are able to finish the coding and everything, and one runs into an error like we did in the class today, what will be the assessment of the performance of that person?
If you run into an error, in my opinion, it helps you more during the interview, because there's nobody in the history of running script code that ran a script that it just works 100% of the time. There'll be times where it would fail, but they would now assess how you went about solving that problem, which I feel, in my opinion, would help you more during your interview. So it doesn't hurt you because you ran into an error and you took some time to try to figure out how to troubleshoot it. That won't hurt you at all. If anything, it would help you, because that is what they want. Every day at work, we are always troubleshooting something every day. So yeah, I think it helps you. Okay. Do you guys have any other questions? If not, I'm going to just terminate this infrastructure.
I see. So on a daily basis, like how many hours do you spend working on a project?
At work? You're talking about just in person or just at work?
No, at work.
At work, okay. It just depends on what they assign to you, but most of the time you aren't really working on a project, because all the projects that I've worked on in the past, the infrastructure was already done. The application is already running, so there's nothing to build there. But what we work on for the most part on a day-to-day is there would be like a ticket for different things. Maybe the application, you guys are maintaining it, and maybe a Terraform just released an update and they want you to change the code to match the update in Terraform. Or maybe you guys are using a T2 micro instance and they want to change it to T3 micro. Or maybe they are using auto scaling group and they want to add an additional scaling policy to it. So it's always like little things like that you are doing. You're always maintaining stuff. It's not really like you are working on a project where you are deploying. It's only so much applications you can deploy. I mean, like, companies don't have thousands of applications for you to deploy. And even if they had thousands of applications, they will probably use the code they've already wrote for the one of the application and just reuse it. So I say that to say, for the most part, we are always maintaining stuff. They will assign you a task to do this here, rotate the password to this, make sure encryption is enabled on something. It's just like things like that. But if you do get to a project, there will be time. One of my previous job where there was a project that I worked on, and it's just like you work on your little tasks every day that is assigned to you, and you dedicate maybe about half a day to working on the project. So whatever the project needs you to get done before they move forward to the next thing, that's what you focus on. So based on your work, you prioritize it on which one is important. So, but I'll say we really don't spend a whole day working on a project. And also another thing I want to mention is when you guys are working on your projects, you are creating everything, the VPC, EC2, auto scaling group, or whatever. But at work, it is going to be done in sprint. So when there's a project that needs to be completed, you guys are not going to, they're not just going to assign everything to you and say, oh, get this done by tomorrow. So maybe in that sprint, they'll say, for this sprint, we need some of these resources to move forward to the next thing. It could be VPC, it could be setting up the route tables in it. Then you work on that. You go to your daily stand-ups, explain your progress. Once that is done, then you tackle the next thing, which is probably like an auto-scaling group in it. So again, even from the project standpoint, you are working on it, you are working on it one task at a time. It is not everything at once. I
Okay,
hope that
thank you.
makes sense. Yeah.
No, it does. It does. And I think my second follow-up question would be, you are in the industry right now, and for the longest time, we've been looking at remote work. What is your assessment on the possibility of remote work continuing into the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Because for most of us who are just coming into the industry, there's a little bit of jittery for, I don't know about other people, but for me, there's a bit of nervousness to go on site. So you look forward to being able to work remote. What is your assessment? What's your advice?
I think there's remote work. There's still lots of remote work, right? There will always be remote work. There was remote work before COVID, and during COVID, we went full remote. Then after COVID, it is going back to some remote, but there's still a lot more remote. My opinion is that during COVID, we were 100% remote, so almost every job was remote. Now that we are COVID is over and everybody is back out doing whatever they are doing again, the amount of remote work that we used to have when COVID was around has almost reduced. I don't know by how many percent, but it has reduced because now some companies want you to come to the office. So my opinion is just like when you apply to the remote work you see online now, it is probably much more competition on those jobs because since most people prefer to work remote, so a lot of people will be applying to those type of job and kind of like skipping on the ones that probably requires them to come in 1 or 2 days or whatever days they want them to come to the office. So, but there will always be remote work. I can even go on Indeed now and show you. We'll just do like a quick search. So here, I'll just do cloud engineering. And I want just remote. As such. You can see that I'm still getting like 7,000 search results. Obviously, some of these will be different things, like, but there will be different versions of cloud engineer. Like you can see, this one is more cybersecurity, which this is actually very good position, right? So hiring multiple candidates. So yeah, there's 7,000 results, which is always good when I search. I don't know of any other industry you can search for. When I was doing my mechanical design, when I search, I could barely find a job, a position in the area that I want to work or making the amount I want to make. For cloud is not really like that. So here you can see 7,000 results. This is remote, but they want you to be remote in Boston. That's another thing you'll see. They will allow you to work remote, but you just have to be living locally in the area. You can see this is another good one. AWS and infrastructure engineer, it is remote. This is a GCP cloud engineer remote. So there are still remote work and there will always be remote work, I believe. But it is not as the amount of remote work you saw during COVID and now is as reduced, right? But
yes, it has.
But there is still remote work and there will always be remote work. Always, I believe.
Okay. And I think it would be to our advantage to know this very well. So if indeed you have to come on site, you're not at a disadvantage. You still know how to perform whatever assignment that you're given.
Exactly, right? But think about it. Going on site doesn't mean that your manager is just sitting there and
watching you,
on your
right?
back and trying to see if you
what you're doing.
what you are doing and making sure that, oh, you know how to get it done. No, if you're on site, you still follow the same thing you would do if you were in your living
You were
room,
in
which
your
is
own home.
exactly because you do your research, whatever they assign to you. For me, I just don't want to go to the office, not because even if I don't know something, I don't know it. Your manager, most of the time, you'll be surprised. They give you stuff with the expectation that you don't know it. And they don't expect you to know it all. They will assign something to you because, again, I always say your job is to solve problems. So when they assign something to you, they say, this is the problem we're having. We want you to help us solve it. And that comes with them understanding that you would have to do research, do whatever you have to do, and come back to them with your own analysis and solution to their problem. So they don't expect you to know it all. They don't expect you to know it all. So that's one of the things. And for me, I just don't want to go to the office because I used to spend a lot of money on gas. And you guys know in the DC area, it might take you anywhere from 45 minutes to 1 hour, 30 minutes just to get to work. So when I used to go to the office, I would have to get up at 4 a.m., maybe 5, right? And I would have to leave the house before 6 to just beat the traffic in the morning, especially if you are going into DC. So, and that would also lead to, imagine doing that in the morning, and when you are coming home in the evening, you're also doing the same thing. So that's almost about 3 hours of your day spent in traffic. You also have to pay for parking because parking is not free in certain places, right? Especially like in DC, parking is not free. You have to pay for parking. So those are my reasons for not even want to go to the office. Not because I'm afraid that my manager will just be on my back. So if you have to go to the office, I'll say whatever opportunity you guys get as your first opportunity, don't be picky. Sometimes you just have to do it just to get your foot in the door. Once you get your foot in the door, other opportunities will come. When I got my first cloud job, it wasn't the amount I want to make. And I had to go to the office and all that stuff, pay for parking, pay for all that stuff. But it was still a good opportunity for me. So I say whatever opportunity you guys get, whether they want you to come to the office, do partial remote, don't be picky. Do it just to get your foot in the door.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Aziz.
No problem. Go ahead, Wahab.
I think I forgot the question I was gonna ask. It's fine.
Oh, okay. Sorry. All right. Yeah. So there you go. There's remote work. You just gotta, I mean, there's but I would say the competition on them may be much more than during COVID when we had almost every job was remote.
Oh, I think I remember now. As it's just a quick, from your experience, have you ever had like to switch cloud platforms? Like, for example, like at work, there was something you needed to work with Azure or something. How have you managed that, for example? Like having to go from AWS to maybe Azure or GCP at work, if you've had the experience of that.
No, I haven't. And it's rare. It is rare that you see that. So some company may be using multi-cloud. Maybe they have some resources that are created in AWS, some that are created in GCP or Azure, but I haven't had that. I've always had all the jobs I've worked at is always AWS. The infrastructure has always been created in AWS, and that is pretty much what we work on. But you will find that even if you have to switch from one to the other, it is not just something that is as easy as just like switching it just like that. There will be a lot of code refactoring. There will be a lot of things you have to do, which takes time, which also they would have to break it up in smaller tasks in your sprint for you to do. I haven't had to do that because typically whatever companies are using, they tend to stick with it. So in all the places I've worked, we've always used AWS and they've always just used that. So yeah, I haven't had that experience where a company was using AWS and they said, you know what, we are switching to Azure. I haven't had that. But I'm saying that even if you had and there was a need to do that, it won't just be something they will just tax on you at once. You would have to just approach it from the smallest tax and just work on it sprint by sprint, tax by tax until you get it done.
Okay, thank you. Another question. So, I know you released the Kubernetes course. I think it was this week, right? Thanks for that. My question is, I think I don't know. I'm not sure, but I from what I've seen, even from the company that I work at, we deploy on Kubernetes, and it appears to be the most popular platform where companies are deploying now. As a cloud engineer, would you say it's like what would you rate the importance of knowing Kubernetes? Like, is this something that it's a must-have or something that you should have an idea of?
I think it's something you should have an idea of to knowing it, but it is really not required to get a job, right? So some companies have it on their job description, no Kubernetes, right? But they don't really use it.
Yeah.
And we actually, so there was a proof of, one of my team members did a proof of concepts for Kubernetes because he knows Kubernetes very well.
Yeah.
But what we found at the end is we really don't have a need for it because we only run 3 containers at a time. Not even 3, maybe 2 or 1.
Yeah.
Because so for our applications, because it's something we are using internally, so it's really not, there's no need for it. And the previous project I worked on, it was the same way. So I'm saying that to say, if you are not working for a company that is deploying thousands of applications, thousands of containers at a time, I don't know what number of containers people use as justification for why they need Kubernetes. But for most companies you work for, I like, especially the ones locally that are not Google, Amazon, I don't think they will just be running that many containers that they will have a need for Kubernetes. Because it's just at that point using Kubernetes when you guys only need like, let's even say 10 containers, it's kind of like an overkill when ECS, Fargate can manage those containers for you. So I'll say, understand Kubernetes, your level is go on from understanding Kubernetes to knowing it, but it is not required to get a job by a lot of companies either. Even if they have it on their resume, on their job description, you don't have to know it. Look at me, I've been working for many years. I just learned Kubernetes last year. And even now with my knowledge in Kubernetes, I won't say I'm an expert at it, but I understand it. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, from the course, how did you go out? Because I noticed you did a lot of like, providing documentation and all of that, but like you said, your knowledge is not like you're not a Kubernetes expert. So I'm guessing you had to go through all those AWS documentation to do the course, right?
Yes. So in anything you are doing at work, or whether you are working on your own personal project or at work, you are always referencing documentation. That's why when we were working on this Terraform stuff, I was showing you how to just look at the documentation. So you start from the documentation. So what I actually did is when I went to start, I started on ChatGPT. I just asked it, I'm a beginner in Kubernetes. Give me like study guide. So it gave me a guide to deploy a Kubernetes application. So it gave me like a guide, but the guide is not, it's not something you can follow 100% and you are done because there's so many moving parts to it. So I started as the guide, but then one of the things I saw in it is, install the Kubernetes command line. So I said, okay, I need to install this. Okay, what's the command to install it? Then that's when I'll go look for the specific documentation to do that. And I just kept doing it piece by piece like that. But then I found a good documentation on AWS. It's a documentation by AWS where they were deploying a Kubernetes application. And in that documentation, they pretty much had, okay, once you create your cluster, you create your manifest file. So that gave me a good idea. So I took that idea and just kept expanding on it. So I ran into a lot of problems here and there when I was working on it, but those problems were the knowledge gap that I had and things I needed to understand. And when I figure out one thing, I just go do a research on it, find the documentation. So I didn't find all that documentation at once. That's what I'm trying to say. It was just, I'll figure out one thing. Then as I'm working on it, I'll get somewhere, I get stuck again. Then I have to figure it out. Then I'll find the documentation on it. And that was how I completed the Kubernetes project.
Great, thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks for that.
so you guys don't have to be an expert. I mean, the understanding it, your expertise will come with time. But to get a job now, I would say do the project, understand it, try to expand on it. At least you have a good understanding of it that you can speak about it during your interview. Because a really good interviewer, what they look for is if you say that you've worked on something before, you have to be able to explain it and explain what you did. So that's what they look for. So once you complete it, you understand it. Try to work on similar projects in Kubernetes. See maybe there's any part of that project you can enhance. What other features can you add to it? Then maybe you work on a project where you try to deploy your Kubernetes cluster using Terraform. So those are all the ways you can expand it, and those are all the things that will help you understand it better. But yes, you don't have to be an expert, because I worked for many years. Even till now, my company still are not requiring me to learn Kubernetes. Just something I learned on my own. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone else have a question? Just going to terminate this.
Yes, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Please, during the process of creating a provider.tf, is it likely to, in that provider.tf where you specify AWS as the provider, is it likely to use other provider like Red Hat or Azure or Google Cloud?
Yes. Yes, it is. So that's the point of the provider file. You guys know that in this Terraform, in this .terraform providers here, right? Is every time you do a Terraform init, it will download the provider, right? And then it will use that to create your resource, right? The point of Terraform is just not built for AWS alone, right? It's not just to create resources in AWS. Terraform allows you to create resources in any cloud provider space. So when you are downloading the package, the Terraform did not include, imagine if they had to include all the dependencies or the code that you need in your provider for all the major cloud provider that they support. It would take a long time to download it. So what they do is they don't specify the provider. That is why you have to specify what provider you want to create your resources in. So that way it can download the specific dependencies for that provider to start creating your resource. So let's say it is Azure you want to work on. I don't know how you specify the provider for Azure, but it will be the similar thing. It will probably just be provider, let me see. It will probably just be provider Azure, then you start creating your resources. So it's not just Azure, it's GCP. There's even some services like maybe Splunk, maybe another, I forgot it. So there's a lot of cloud provider that Terraform supports. And you would have to specify the name of that cloud provider to be able to start creating the resources.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that is pretty much it for today's demo. And we can continue tomorrow. I'll push this, whatever we did today, to the repository so you guys can have it as reference. But if you have time, try to read the instruction in the README file and use that to try to work on this project. I think it's a really good assignment.
Can you push it? Can you put the video in the Slack?
Yes, I will. I will once I'm done. I will. Other than that, if anyone needs help troubleshooting, I can help you guys troubleshoot. Because we are one. And one thing I found out too is like sometimes some of you two don't really like the class being too long. So that's why I'm trying to allocate some time to doing demo, answering question, and help you guys troubleshoot. Do you guys is anyone that needs help troubleshooting?
Yeah, I will. You need one.
Peter?
Yeah.
You said you need help troubleshooting?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do you have time to do it now or?
Yes, we can do it now.
Okay, sure. Let me stop share.
Okay. Let me share. So I think you remember last week I spoke about this is the GitHub pipeline project. So I've already run it. I launched it while we're still having the first initial part of this meeting, so that we can just have it already running. So I've already run it on. If I go to my GitHub action, yes, it's already run and it's completed fully.
Okay.
But then when I try to check it, like, okay, let me access my website, it doesn't work. So I
So
have an error.
what is your website saying? Try to access it.
Okay, let me see that. Let me show you. So this is how it shows up.
So 500 requests just means that there is something wrong on your server. So it means that it's that kind of like a generic thing. So if there's any type of misconfiguration, when I was working on Kubernetes project, I get that a lot. So this and the main issue I can think of is probably your Docker image was not built successfully. Like it was built, but there's probably an error in it. Or maybe your database credentials is not referenced correctly. It could be anything. So, but in order to be sure, let's go to the ECS and see what the error is saying in the ECS also.
Okay.
Sometimes it would have it there, but sometimes 500 doesn't really tell you like exactly where.
Yeah. Let's go to the ECS.
Okay, so select your service there.
And you see, it keeps trying and it's failing.
Select deployment. Scroll down. Right. So it said one has stopped. Select the one that says go down to, don't scroll, but just move your mouse down. That one, yeah, select it.
Okay, this one.
Yeah, that the tax ID. Yeah, select down.
Okay.
Select the logs.
It shows nothing in the logs.
Go back again. Let's find another one. Maybe that one is the new one. And go back to your tax again. Oh yeah. Snow, go to your cluster and your service. Yeah. Service. Yeah. Scroll down, go to deployments again. Let's select that one, where your mouse is, that one.
This?
Was that the one we selected before?
I think this is the one that we just.
Okay, scroll down. Let's look for another one. Select that one with the 2. That starts with the 2.
This one.
It is telling you, it's even telling you there. Okay. So as you can see the error here. It's saying it's failing. So the first place I'll look is in your your Docker file. So
yeah, so let's go to the Docker file. This is the Docker file. So you remember some time ago.
Oh yeah, I say what the issue is.
Okay.
I think, and I had the same issue with this application. I think, well, not think, but I haven't really tested it. But when I did, I tested it, and I kept getting the same error. So that led me to the conclusion. This and another thing I didn't tell you is this application, if you notice when we installed it, when we installed that our Docker project, the rent zone in our Docker project, we use PHP version 7 because sometimes when they write application codes, right, they will give you a requirement that says install PHP version this. Because if you try to install a different version, maybe a version that is lower or higher, it might not work. So in your case, on line 17, I see that you are installing PHP version 8. And when I also tried to do that, it didn't work. So let's start at that one. I will send the code to you now for version 7. So replace your version 8.1 with the 7 that I'm about to send to you.
Yeah.
So you guys, when you guys work on the,
I tried with the version 7. I think I tried with the version 7, but then it didn't still work. Then I was trying to change the version to see if it would
yeah.
work. But let's try the version 7. Let's try that. Because I remember you had sent me the code once for that version.
Yeah, so the ones that I sent to you was based on the one I wrote for the Nest application, which that one does work on 8, but I don't think the rent zone one works on 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the rent zone one would not work on 8, but the Nest one works on version 8. So that's the one I've sent you the code for version 7.
So let me use this one.
Okay. So let's scroll down. Don't change anything in yeah, let's scroll down and let's see what I have in this Docker file. Okay, DB. Okay, scroll down. Yeah, okay, scroll down. I don't think I have those ones. So I think the Docker file this Docker file you are using is based on the Nest application, and that one can handle a different. I mean, for the most part, they are the same thing, but setting our memory limit that I see in your Docker file, that one is not. We didn't do that for the rent zone application. So I'll just send you my Docker file, and we would just replace your Docker file with the one I'm sending you. So, I mean, everything in your Docker file is right. I'm not saying it's wrong, but this is a good point to cover that for any application you guys are deploying, understanding the application requirement is part of how you would avoid any errors, because sometimes they will tell you install PHP version 7. If you try to install 8 and the code is not built to handle version 8, you will run into issues. And there's also other requirements too. So that's just something to keep in mind. And maybe I didn't do a good job at explaining that, but when I update the course, I'm going to explain those things so you guys understand. At least you guys know it is noted when you work on the project. But use this Docker file. It is exactly like yours, but it doesn't have some of the other requirements. So the only thing we have to make sure is that, yeah, use this one. So I think it should match. The only thing we have to make sure is just the argument. Just make sure that the environment argument and the build arguments up there. Make sure that the argument name match whatever you have before. You don't have to worry about the ones below it, but just the ones up there by yeah, just scroll up.
Yeah.
Not yeah, just right here. Yeah, just right here.
So I
Just
can take from here,
no, copy
from
the whole,
argument.
replace the entire Docker file.
Okay. I'm just checking the variables
Sure.
to be sure that it's the same thing.
So is this your Docker file now? Leave it there. I'll
Yes.
compare it. I'll compare it to mine. Just leave it there. I'll compare it for you.
Let me create a different file and then we can have both on both sides.
No, don't. Oh, you want
Okay.
to? But I'll just comparing it on my end because I have my own screen open. I can
Okay.
just look
Okay.
for you. Unless if you're
Okay.
saying you want to keep this Docker file and you just want to create a new one.
No, I just wanted to be as you are comparing it. Yeah, we can compare it.
Okay, so yeah, you can put it side by side. So you know how you can do that, but you would have to save it though.
Yeah.
But there's a better way to do that. So let me show you.
Or sometimes I prefer to do it. Maybe I do it downwards instead.
Okay.
So that we
No.
can see the full
No,
line.
Visual Studio Code has a better way where you can compare it. So
Okay.
move that file up there. Okay. Then open your Explorer thing. Open your Explorer where you have all the names on the side. No, in your Visual Studio Code where you have all the names on the side.
Okay.
Yeah. And minimize that IAC folder and minimize your GitHub Actions thing for now. Okay. this Docker file, that's the one we don't want to use. Name it Docker1.
Okay.
Just put Docker file and put like reference at the end or anything. So that way the name, because we need that name so we can name the other one Docker file. All right. Now create another file called Docker file in there. Okay. Now paste your code in there.
This is the one I copied from Slack.
Yeah, scroll up.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. And save it. Okay, you have okay, you don't have auto save. Save all. Or delete that other one you was about to create before.
This
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Oh, what is it? Okay, so let me to save that file.
Okay. So now, a good way you can compare two files in Visual Studio Code, if you guys want to compare two files, select the first one, right click on it, and select for compare.
Select and compare.
Then select the second file
Mm-hmm.
and right click on it and select compare with selected.
Okay.
So you see it is telling you what is different in each Docker file.
Mm-hmm.
In each file, it is telling you the part of the code that is different. So you can see on the right side is the new Docker file.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, on the right side is the old
the
Docker
right side
file,
is
is the old one. And on the left side is the new one. So you can see in the new one, I removed that cat one. That's just printing your env file. So I mean, you can either add it or remove it. It doesn't really hurt you, right? But in that other one, the way we are referencing our environment variables, we are using the bracket, but in the Docker file, we are using just the dollar. Both method works. So so in the when we did the Docker project, the one on the left, that is how we did it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
actually, I think I removed the curly brackets, but I don't think I removed it everywhere because if you look here, I didn't use the curly brackets. So actually, I was to update it all the way down.
yeah. So that is how you can compare the file. So the one the Docker file I provided to you will work for that net range zone. So okay. So do you want to, you can delete your Docker file reference. You can see everything else is the same. So delete that one because we don't need that one. Oh yeah, we forgot. Okay, we did compare it because it wasn't showing us. So we were going to compare your environment variables, but everything is the same because if something was different, yeah, it would highlight it. All right, delete this file.
Okay.
All right, now push your update to start your pipeline. Okay, go in GitHub. So we select actions.
Okay, it's gonna take some time
Okay, yeah.
to
Did
run
you
through everything.
was your infrastructure in where it wasn't in deploy, it wasn't in destroy state before,
Yeah, it
so
wasn't destroyed yet, but it was still in apply.
okay. Yeah, so I think this will update it. So at least the good thing is the Terraform part won't take too long to run since that is already created.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, it's gonna cross that section. Okay, another question as it is running. I remember, where is that? I think it's configuring the AWS credential. No, it's not. Yeah. I think I pasted it once and I was asking you what it does. I can still find that. I can still find that page. I pasted it where it told me that my credentials are not secured. Something like that. When it was running the pipeline.
If your pipeline has any warning, it will tell you in your pipeline. So you don't
Yeah.
have to worry about looking for it. Your pipeline will tell you. You see,
Yeah, I know it will show the warning. I just wanted to get it before it reaches there while it is running.
yeah, so that's just saying it doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just saying that the action you are using to update your credential might be out of date.
Here
So
is it.
right there,
Here is it.
right?
Your Docker
Uh,
password is not masked. So I wanted to find out what is this. If am
oh,
I
that
able
is
to
just
see?
the scroll up.
Yes, this one.
So that is just because we are running the CLI command to, so select the drop down under that action, on that run. Right. So let me look at that. Hold on. Let me look at the how we are running it. So that is the build and push Docker image job.
The max password is false. I need to be set to true. I was trying to research it, but I couldn't find. I didn't really find anything. Process how to do that.
There's just probably the actions we are using to log into ECR, you know. So it is telling you how to so see GitHub actions login that is telling you which one to use. So select that link. It's just the actions we are using. It's probably updated or they probably created a new one. So here, Docker credentials. So the registry URI. So this is like the CLI. Scroll up. Let me see. So you see, we are using version 1. Over here in their example, they are using version 2. So sometimes just the action you are using may be out of date. So you guys know that when we use this action, there is there is a code on the back end that action runs. The action is just so so what is happening is sometimes they may have update the underlying code, and when they update it, that's when the version moves to a different version. So when you get that warning, yeah, you just need to, but I would copy the entire action, not just part of it. It's always good to get in the habit of copying everything, just part of it, so that way you don't make mistakes. So the action you just saw, just copy everything and replace your use with their use. So you see, you are only copying it up to the M.
So I got to copy all this block, right?
No, copy under uses, copy the value.
Uses.
Yeah, copy the full value. And replace your use with that one. Yep, that's all. That should resolve that issue. But don't push it yet, because that will
I'm not
keep up.
pushing yet now.
Yeah.
Check another pipeline.
Yeah, refresh. Is your screen stuck?
Yeah, it looks whenever it goes into this build, sometimes it freezes the
Okay.
screen. I just wait when it's through, then it pops up back.
Are you using Chrome or you're using a
No,
different
it's
Internet Explorer? Okay.
Edge. Edge. I think the building has a lot of lines. So maybe I think I should at the level of either unzipping the zip file. I usually take a lot of
Yeah, that takes time.
it takes a lot of lines like pops up.
It's pushing.
Yeah.
It's pushing your image now. So
Okay. Going to the next stage. This message that you write here, does it mean anything? You are not signing in Flyway to sign in phase one of
No, it doesn't mean anything. You don't have to sign in to run your migration.
okay.
Because they said it successfully migrated your.
Yeah, yeah, anyway, he said I didn't migrate anything because the schema was already up to date.
Yeah. So remember your RDS instance that Terraform created is still there.
Yeah.
So and Flyway stores this, just like Terraform has a state file, Flyway also has a state file. It
Oh,
stores
okay.
the state file in the database, right?
Okay.
So when you run another one, we didn't delete the RDS, so you are running Flyway again. So it just recognized that there was already a state file there, and it has already migrated the SQL script you wanted to migrate.
Okay.
Yeah. So just restarting your ECS service now. So Can you refresh and see? I think we lost him. Yeah, I think it dropped. So his Zoom thing probably went out. So does anyone else needs help troubleshooting?
Yes, 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 I do, please. I'm waiting.
Okay. All right. Oh yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
can I go on?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'm working on building a dynamic website with Docker, right?
Mhm.
So everything is fine up until the point where you asked us to run a shell script
Mhm.
on the terminal, but I can't figure that part out. That's the only part that is, because
Okay,
you
sure.
didn't put the instruction to for a Mac there. You just did for Windows. And I tried running it on my terminal, but I got nothing back.
Okay, sure. Let me share your screen and I'll show you. The one for Mac is there too, but it's maybe I just didn't probably clarify it good enough. So I'm sorry about that. But it's there. It's in the GitHub
Yeah, I can
repository for
see
that project.
the script. I can see the script you're asking me to run, but let me try and say, oh my God.
Okay, share your screen, then we'll go through it.
I'm using this thing on my phone, but let me see.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, I'm using it on my phone, so let me try and connect
okay.
my computer. Just give me a moment.
Okay. I think she dropped too. So Peter, are you back? Is your service should be done by now. Yeah, I realized. Uh, so
Yeah, let me see. Let me go back to the page. It is still on the restart ECS package. Let me refresh the page and see if anything. Yeah, it's still on the restart ECS package. Can I share back my screen? Or
yeah,
is
sure.
anyone else sharing the screen?
Share your screen and let me see where that is. If it is still there, then I'll just help Olanike. Then we can, once yours is done, you can message me or something. Let me know what. Yeah.
Okay,
So
I'm sure that this
so
one.
try to use. I think Chrome is better when you are working on in the thing. I always use Chrome, so I recommend using Chrome. I think I'm not sure if I think it makes a difference. So.
Okay.
But just like for like future reference, so I always work in Chrome because I'm not sure why some of this is loading now again. So and there's also a mixture of that and also being on Zoom at the same time, you know. So
Yeah.
um okay, I think it was running that time, so let's see if it is done.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's go back
Oh, so is your
there.
GitHub signed in here too?
No, I don't think I can even.
Yeah, it's still running. Yeah, it's probably a mixture of. Hmm. Well, it's using a GitHub Actions runner. I'm not sure if the once. Well, I don't know. So let me note. Yeah. So it's running now because
Yeah, this
sometimes.
last stage usually takes a long time equally. So
Mhm.
I don't know. Oh, now
Okay,
it's done.
it's done. Okay. So now go to your ECS service.
This thing, I remove this thing out of my way. Okay. ECS7.
Or just try to access your site. So your service is well, just as
I
one.
wanted to
Plus,
check if
yeah,
they are stable, they are healthy.
click on service. Yep, it's healthy.
Oh, nice, healthy. Yeah. Healthy.
Okay,
Whoa.
there you go. So the issue, most time when you guys work on your Docker application and ECS or Kubernetes, if you think that
Mm-hmm.
500 error, most
Mm-hmm.
likely is your Docker file. So,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
all right, cool. Let me, well, I'm glad we got that resolved, but let me know if you have any other questions. So we'll work on
yeah.
that.
Yeah. I just want to ask, I was working on the project of I think it's Python. I think it's Python. Yeah, this one. I got into an issue where you see when we were getting the objects of the bucket and the dates in S3, it gives me the date based on my time zone. But when I get here, it gives on a different time zone, like it gives on GMT, and then it doesn't run the command that has to pull the files and copy them into the folder that has been created because it doesn't match what it's saying. I don't know.
Okay, so do a research on how you can modify that code to specify your whatever time zone you want it to be in.
Yeah, I started doing that. I just wanted to find out if you have run into that issue. I started doing that
I
thing.
mean,
I
yeah,
think.
people have said it. I think when I was my first when I wrote the code, it fell between my whatever the time zone is and mine. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, people have mentioned it in the past, which is really not a really big deal. But you can do a research on how to. You probably just have to add one extra thing to that code to make it
Uh-huh.
point to whatever time zone you want it to point to.
Yeah, okay. All right, I will continue to see because this is what I found. I think I pasted it on ChatGPT and ChatGPT was giving a sort
So
of code.
you give it too much information. So
Mm-hmm.
just copy that part of the code out where we are creating the time zone, and
Mm-hmm.
then give it that. Say this is my code for this. I want
Mm-hmm.
to add an option to specify. I want to specify it in this time zone, and it will do it for you. So here you will give
Okay.
it a lot of other extra information that you don't need to do. So just
Mm-hmm.
when you give it too much information, it will just give you a whole bunch of other information too.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
So the
I'll do my
code is
best.
right. It's just that part of the code you just need to add it. I can
Mm-hmm.
look it up later and I'll figure out what we need to add. But it's just probably one thing you need to add there to tell it your time zone.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
All right.
Okay,
Thank
send
you,
me a
Peter.
list. If anything comes up, I'll let you know.
Okay, no problem. Okay, Olanike, share your screen, please. Did she drop? Oh no, she's here. Olanike, can you hear me? You're probably talking on mute. Yeah, I think you are. Your mic is muted.
Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here, right, this is the command that you gave to us.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when I go to my terminal, can you see my terminal?
No, I think you are just sharing just one
Just
thing.
one. Okay, hold
Yeah.
on. Sure. Let me share. Okay. I don't know how to share multiple, but yeah, see, if I put this in, it does nothing.
Okay, so you see why saying no. So what that command does is like the chmod plus x. That is, you are telling it that is a command to change a setting on a file. So you are telling it, I want to change the setting on this build image.sh file. And it is telling you that it can't find the file. So what that means is that when you run this chmod command, you must run it from the exact directory where the file is in, or you have to specify the full path to the file. Does that make sense?
On that, yes, I did
So,
cd right. Okay, so the file is in my rent zone thing, and this is the file itself.
Sure. So right now, can you type pwd in your terminal? That will tell you what directory you are in.
I
So you
mean,
can
yeah.
Exactly. You can see that you are not in the range zone directory. So first you have to go into that directory, right?
Okay, let me do it. Cd web. Oh, I can't see.
So if press the tab key, if the thing you then
Yeah, okay.
ls.
So I should go into rent zone.
Yeah.
I'm right there.
ls. You can see that file is in there in your current directory. So now if you type pwd again, you can see the current directory now.
Yes.
So now if you run that command, it should work.
This? I got nothing.
Yeah. So sometimes when you run commands, some commands give you output, meaning that it will tell you something after you run it, if it was successful. And some commands don't give you output. But if you run it and you don't get any error, it means it is successful.
Okay, so after that, you then asked us to come to this, what's the name? Visual Studio Code, open the integrated terminal. But this is what I'm getting. I don't know if you can see it. It's not taking me to your own. It's not taking me to rent zone build image.sh. It's just taking me to rent zone Olanike. Is that correct?
Yeah, you are in the right thing. So Olanike is just your username, but your directory is the one after your MacBook Pro. You can see it says rent zone.
But when I run the command, right, that you said, I think it's local build.
Type pwd again. So your terminal is pretty much the same thing you just did in the other. In your Visual Studio Code is the same terminal as the other one you just ran it in. So there's the same one. Visual Studio Code is open. Type pwd in there. You will see okay, you did. You can see that you are in that rent zone directory. So now if you type your Docker build, right?
Docker build. Okay.
So type the name. So you're saying you are trying to run that shell script, right?
Yes.
Okay, type that and the name of the script you are trying to run.
That is
build
image.
So press the tab key.
Tab.
There you
go.
All right, press enter.
All right. That requires exactly one argument.
Okay, so the issue is in your Docker build, not the script itself. It is working, but here it is just saying that there is an error in your script. So let me look at it for you. Let me look at your script. So right there, you can see on line 5, you need a space between your thing. Save it and run it again. Press up on your keyboard. Yeah, that will bring your last command that you ran. There you go.
Okay. I think I got it now. It's working now. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So is it running? So
Yes, it is.
I think it failed.
Oh,
So your command failed, right? So
yeah, there's error on
oh,
twice.
so your app service provider.php file, right?
Yes.
Remember, that is the file that we want to copy into our container to replace it. And when I'm looking at yours is a folder. So it needs to be in the same directory as your Docker file, because that's where it is going to look for it, unless if you, it's either that or you specify the full path to it. Do you understand? So
Okay,
if you
you
look
want
in this Docker file, right? Scroll down,
wait,
on,
this Docker file?
yeah, that's the one you have open.
Okay.
Scroll down to line 117, right? So that what that is saying is it will copy your app service provider file into your container, right? You don't need to change anything there. So
Okay.
you just need to make sure you put, because you see the first one where it says copy app service provider. So that is saying that the file is in the same directory as my Docker file.
Okay.
So in your range zone, your app service is not in that directory. You put it in another directory that you call app service. So you just need to move it. So select that folder, then drag that app service down to where your Docker file is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And click move. And delete that folder that you created. The app
Is it now?
service, yeah, that one, delete it. Okay. That's
So
what
it's good now.
yeah, it's good. So now you just need to run your script again.
Okay.
No, you need to, yeah. There you go.
Can't see. I don't know. Can you see? Okay.
Yeah, your Zoom stuff is in the way. It's fine. Yeah. Okay, it's running now.
Okay.
Okay, it will take some time to run. So yeah, so that was pretty much the issue.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That should that should be it. Every other thing looks good.
Yeah, so yeah, it's running now. But if you run into, I promise you, I know, I'm sorry. I should have gone back to you. So I would be on standby today. So if you do run into any other issue, but once you build your Docker image and push it to ECR, everything else should be straightforward, because most of the other stuff you already know. But I'll be on standby in case if you run into any issue and you need me to help you troubleshoot.
Okay.
All right, but it is
Thank you.
running. No problem. All right. Okay. I believe that is it. Yes.
Can I talk to you privately, please?
Yeah, sure. I'll just send you a different link after we're done. All right. Mr. Adewale, did you want to say something or? Okay. Well, that's pretty much it for today.
Oh, just to commend you for good job.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So yes, thank you. We're pretty much at the end. It's like pretty much 1 hour over. I'll see you guys next week. And if you have any questions during the week, let me know. And if you need help troubleshooting anything, is the best time to access during our Saturday meeting. So, and if it is something that I can help you during the week, I'll also help you as well. So thank you.
Aziz, before you go, let me chip in something. You went on live over the weekend, over the week.
Yes.
Please, if you want to go on live anytime, maybe if there's a way you can get in touch with us directly, that would be appreciated, because I think I missed that
Okay.
online something that day. So
Yeah, so I want to do a live where I'm actually doing showing you guys how to do certain things. But typically when I go on live, it's usually when I'm troubleshooting with somebody. So I always feel like maybe it's something you guys might be interested in or not. So that's why I don't usually send out that notification. But if you guys want me to send out the notification for when I go live, I will.
That would be appreciated.
Okay. Okay, I'll do that.
Also, a lot of us could learn from the mistakes or the troubleshooting that the problem you are solving for others.
Okay. Okay. I will start sending you guys the notification in Slack when I'm going live. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay. So, Mr. Larry, I'll send you a link right after this meeting. So thank you, everyone. And I'll see you next week. Have a good weekend. Bye.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. No problem. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.